But we want it to be interactive because I think nobody got a chance to ask the questions earlier from the previous panel. For me, I would really disagree. I would say that social media, I think Twitter's making tons of money. Aren't they making tons of money? And I mean, the things that we're talking about today constitute a very small fraction of what they, of what people talk about. I remember going on Twitter yesterday and they were looking at trending topics. And I think topic number 5 was nicknames for breasts. It's only a mechanism. It's a means by which people talk to each other. You can use it to leverage your cause or your brand or whatever. But so can everyone else. It's just the consumer who has to make the choice. And as the consumer is going around contributing to whatever trending topic they happen to be interested in, they might come across an ad, and that's how they make money, I think. I think that's how they make money. I'm not sure. Do you know, Voltaire, how they make money? Twitter and Facebook and that. Yeah. Yeah, it's ad-driven. It's ad-driven. And also because if you've got 500,000 people joining every day around the world, I mean, it's a different situation in China, but, around the world, it's really taking off like crazy, and they're making so much money. Look at Steve Jobs, who died, last week, a multi-billionaire. Bloggers. In relation to what you were saying, Alex here from the Daily Star was talking about how at the presidential palace here, they were talking about whether bloggers should be accredited or not to attend the presidential palace. Are they journalists? Are they the new media? I know the White House has accredited a couple of bloggers, but I don't know what their basis is. They worry me personally. I remember, for the Malaysians here, I remember interviewing Rajapetra quite some time ago, right after the revelations with the Mongolian case. And I said, well, how do you know this? And he said, it's not my problem. I'm a blogger. I just put it out there. I don't have the burden of proof. You just say, it's up to Najib to prove his case, which, fills me with horror as a journalist. But I think people can tell. I think, the consumer will look at it and say, well, has got any evidence? And they'll decide, he's just stirring the pot. And I think a lot of people do think that some bloggers are stirring the pot. They're not doing their research properly. They're just making opinions. And then they'll make their own. The age of reference, like what I was saying before.
Can I get some views on Ms. Soon's question, how can the social media regulate? Because we are in a country where the Pope is killed every month, and a celebrity that's supposed to still be alive would be reported killed in an accident, but it turns out to be a hoax. So how do we regulate social media, especially in times of national disaster, where accurate information is very critical?
I'm Walter from Move.ph. I'm basically a product of social media, and now we're in partnership with veteran journalists. So it's like a model. Yeah, it's like a model. It's like a model we're trying to present in the country. So what's happening is the veteran journalist who provides context, the background, as you said, equips the citizens. It's a way of empowering the citizens, actually, called citizen journalists, in terms of the skills they have. Of course, you can talk to everyone and all, but media set the tone. Because there's cyberbullying in social media, for instance, and all that, and it's chaotic there. So it's really a challenge to the media, because you can regulate social media. Actually, there's no border, and we don't encourage censorship, and it would be very impractical. But since journalists follow code of ethics, and they are equipped, so it's really incumbent upon them to set the tone of the conversation, because they are organized. They are responsible, supposedly. So I think it would be very crucial for journalists to actively engage in social media, so that they will be part of the dialogue and then influence netizens in the process educating them.
Could social media have helped save the 30-plus journalists who went to cover Toto Mongadudatu in Maguindanao? Can it do something like that? That would be my question. It's like, does it play a role? Because when I was going around doing interviews, a lot of people, like at my old employer here in the Philippines, ABS-CBN, was saying that could happen again, anytime, anywhere in this country, it could happen again. So despite the fact that there's a very free media environment here or anywhere, it doesn't necessarily make you any safer or make things any better. I don't know if you have a comment, Carol.
There were 32 of them actually. They all had mobile phones, but they weren't able to send any message at all. Of the 58 victims, 32 were from the media, but not one of them was able to send a message, unfortunately. No tweets, of course, from that area.
They cross-reference information coming from different sources to verify that information is correct, and that's one of our biggest concerns when we're looking at what happens in a disaster. Is that information correct? Should we act on it? But I think also you can be selective as to who you follow. If you know there are people within the Red Cross where, yep, you can get trusted, good information from this person, you follow them. And you can always follow up with a phone call afterwards. So I think, you know, there's always. I mean, I remember being in Japan after the tsunami. I mean, there was literally a tsunami of information coming out about people who were missing, people who had been found, and there was one tragic story of an American who was looking for his daughter. And I wrote a web story from a place called Ishinomaki where we had a hospital. The Japanese Red Cross had a hospital. And this guy saw my byline on the story because it got shared with various other websites. And he sent me a message saying, please, I'm desperate to find my daughter. Can you verify whether she is in this building where I've had messages saying she was? And I couldn't do anything simply because, you know, I wasn't in a position to help an individual at that time. But having been told that she was alive, he subsequently discovered that she wasn't alive. You know, she died. So I agree. There is a sort of vast volume of. There's a rumor mill that goes around, but you have to be, you know, you have to be selective and you have to cross-reference where that information is coming from.
I wanted to ask, actually, going back to the other panel when you guys were speaking. Finn was talking about something called beneficiary communications. I mean, that's embedded inside your kind of mission, right, with AlertNet, but it's difficult for normal media to do it, like commercial media. Most of us need to, our editors will say, is there any money? And you know what I mean? Will that get more ads or things like
Sure.
that? Or is it something that you see with your training around the region that is a public service commitment?
Well, I guess you can look at it in different ways. The EIS that we did in Haiti was pure bank comms, and it is very much more of a humanitarian worker, aid worker, but you know, from the information side rather than journalism side. But I think for some things like, for example, like live blogging, I think you are sort of fulfilling the role in terms of informing the beneficiaries or the affected communities of what's going on. So I think we do that. I think we already do that, you know, subconsciously in our jobs, especially whenever we do reporting on humanitarian disasters. But I think a lot of the times we tend to focus a lot of our reporting on the outside world, you know, people who are looking in rather than people who are living and experiencing in. And I don't think it's that difficult for us to, you know, we don't have to all come up with projects just to inform the beneficiaries of what's going on. I think even in our day-to-day coverage of conflicts and disasters, I think that's something that's quite easy to incorporate. That's just...
Can I just add to that? I mean, we're using a similar tool to the EIS where you can actually, it's a great piece of software where you can direct a very specific message, and we've used this to great effect in Haiti, particularly around things like cholera prevention campaigns, where you can send a message, an SMS, to mobile users who are located around a specific mass. So it could be 300 people, it could be 3,000 people. So it's very effective for reaching people in camp situations. But it's not just about the sort of high-tech tools like that. It's about using traditional approaches working with FM radio, community radio, because in support of sending a message like that, we also have a radio broadcast with the Haitian Red Cross, who get in specialists, doctors to talk about, what do you do to prevent cholera, how do you treat it, where are the clinics. So you have to have a number of different complementary approaches.
So we're doing the coverage anyway, it's just a question of making it more useful to...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you're a national newspaper, it is rather more difficult to have that focus on those specific kind of issues.
Just short comment at Fukushima Home, Mainichi News Japan. And just short comment on Veronica's keynote speech. I totally agree with you and share with you the assessment that we are losing competition with new media. And not only the competition, but we are losing trust and confidence of the audience or our readers. In Japan, fewer people are reading newspapers, and especially even after the triple disaster which hit Fukushima Prefecture, ordinary people tend to believe social media rather than the mainstream traditional media, because we will take time to verify the fact and cross-check the information, and they are very speedy. So, well, we realize that the reality that we are losing the fight, but Al Jazeera is doing something to fight against this stream, and now Japanese media is planning to, how can I say, issue some new products using the social media technology and so on. But I don't think it's enough to cope with that.
I would agree. I mean, there's a development or something that works on what is going to happen. There are shows in the pipeline, like we do HA Stream, which is just this talk, looking at what people are talking about and trying to kind of deconstruct the various narratives with which the Twitter streams are coming in, the various channels are coming in. And I think it is educative for people who can be bothered to watch the program, that to look behind, who is it who's saying it, what agenda do they have. I'm very worried about, like, for example, my son is 12 years old, he's always on the internet, and he tells me the most ridiculous things that he honestly believes are true, because he thinks, the people at Google have told him so. Google doesn't have an opinion, it just ranks information. And the one at the top is just the one that most people have clicked on. That's all it is, that's their algorithm. Everyone's like spending, lots of journalism courses trying to break the algorithm or find the clue of the algorithm, but there isn't, and I think that's one role that journalism can play. But I would say, kind of broadly, Jazeera feels that what's happening in the information infrastructure is in line with their idea of the masses being at the center of the agenda. They're a bit lefty, really, a bit progressive, is that what? But we do use the word, the masses. They are, they know what they want. They are politically aware, and they're aware of the various agendas that people have.
Of the democratization. And do you think in this new era of the new media, do we need some new media literacy education for the public? Thank you.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. My poor mum is on the internet. Oh, have you seen this? Yes. It's Google. They don't have an opinion. Like I was saying about my son. Actually, he's doing a course. I think it should be in schools. They have a course called Theory of Knowledge in the program that he's doing. It's about how do we know stuff, how do we know if it's true. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have to be very aware and very transparent so that people can read instantly what you're about. Otherwise they feel that they've been tricked. But the thing is that not everyone is, and there's irony and there's satire and all of that. But yes, people do need educating about that. And there will be, I think there will be classes of information savvy and information not savvy. I think it's developing into a kind of streaming.